Good morning and welcome to what is Oz by Drone channel, but this is the Wirecast in the Wild segment. I use Wirecast on my day-to-day streaming, and I'm here today, as always, with Jens. Welcome, Jens. How you doing?
Hey, thank you for having me. Nice to be on your show again.
Yeah. So we've been doing a few little segments talking about topics of interest to us. About what's happening in Wirecast and what we think people might need. But a couple of weeks ago, we spoke about doing something different where we're just going to go to the forum and we're going to go and put forum posts on the screen and talk about them and hopefully answer some questions. But before we do that, just a quick little message for those who watch my other regular channel. Last week, I didn't do my show. One of my producers, Greg Hilton, was quite ill. And in fact, the night before the stream, he had a stroke in his house. I just want to let any of my regulars know that Greg is okay and doing well. He was due to be released from hospital yesterday. He had a stroke and he also injured his back in 4 places. So he's quite unwell, but he is recovering and hopefully we'll see him on tomorrow's Oz by Drone. Anyway, on to the topic at hand. So I've got the forum up in a page where I'm going to bring up a few posts and we're going to chat about them. There's no preparation involved in any of this, so apologies if it's a little bit rough, but we're going to have some fun anyway. So starting at the beginning. We've got a post here, and I hope you can read this, Jens. The post is no audio. We're using Wirecast Pro, but the issue is we're not getting sound into the Mac from our interface. Pardon me. So it's not exactly clear exactly what the problem is, but what do you think that one means?
I'm not that much into the Apple world. Can it be the OS thing that you have to allow the capture card to get into the system?
Yeah, it's a good point. That's one of the common ones with Apple. If you've got a new device that requires device drivers to be installed on a Mac, the very first time you want to use that, you have to in system preferences, go to security and say, hey, I approve of these drivers to work on my machine. So that's a really, really good common one. Let's see what else we can find. And by the way, Matthew Potter, I know you said you were going to be in the chat. I just thought I'd see if you did make it into the show. Anyway, moving on. What have we got here? You're talking about choppy NDI in Wirecast 12, and you're actually chatting about that yourself. What was this thread about?
Yeah, I think that the NDI stuff in 12 needs some improvement. This comes with the NewTek SDK 3.8. I think it's not that 100% running in Wirecast 12. So I think Matthew stepped back to version 11 where he had no issues. So I guess in the meantime, if you face NDI issues with Wirecast, try version 11. You can download it in the previous version section and see if this fixes. At least then we know that has to do with the new SDK version.
Yeah, so Matthew's in the chat there. Thanks for being here, Matt. What we might do is at some point we're going to go and talk about some of the other posts and kind of leave the NDI thing till last. We might even get Matt to come in and join in the rendezvous and come and say hi as well. See how we go. So let's go and continue in the forum. What else have we got? Virtual camera driver requires an upgrade is the next post that I can see.
Yeah, it's more or less a endless topic. I saw it the past few weeks arguing back and forth. So
About NDI?
No, the
This one.
audio driver. Yeah, the audio driver.
Yep.
I think this is just on Telestream or Wirecast N. Nothing much we can do about, honestly. If it's really a driver issue, then they should. You see, it's quite lengthy.
Yeah, so this is not an audio
Right.
one. This is a virtual camera driver requires an upgrade. So just have a quick peek. Sierra or Mojave.
I don't have a good answer to this, to be honest, because this seems to be very
Mac specific.
Wirecast specific, and yeah.
So let me just continue to scroll down. Okay, so it works properly now by deleting some other driver. So let's just talk generically about virtual camera drivers. First things first, same comment that we made before. Anything that's inserting drivers, you may need to accept them into the security preferences within your operating system if you're running a Mac. Secondly, if you've got something else that's doing the same or a similar function, it's possible that that can be conflicting at that level. So one of the things that Craig did suggest in that post is to use a different admin account on the machine and replicate the functionality. That's very often helpful because, you know, you create a new user, it's not going to have all of the startup and other information that's happening. So that can very often help. Other than that, uninstalling other stuff that may be at a system level, not at the user level. So you might have another video capture application that's conflicting, or a video virtual camera that's conflicting. Uninstall that as well, and that certainly helped for that guy there.
What try you can go NDI out from Wirecast, and with the NDI tools you get some virtual camera functionality as well. Try that route. Maybe you can get it working this way as a workaround.
Yeah. The next one is an interesting one, and it's one that I've had personally happen to me as well. So let me go to the top of it. Virtual mic becomes laggy after a while. And in fact, I would actually go so far as to say I've never really had success with the virtual mic. I did try and use it into Skype. This is one of the reasons why I don't use Skype and I use Rendezvous instead. I could never get it to work. That's on a Mac. You're using different hardware. You're using a PC. So I'd be curious, Matthew, in the chat room, if you use a virtual mic, and if so, if it was on Mac or PC, and how that behaves for you. But have you played with a virtual mic, Jens, yourself?
Honestly, not, because I use Dentavia, and
Same.
absolutely happy with it. You can route audio from to whatever you want to, and that gives me all the flexibility I need. And additionally, running on a audio desk externally, you can add all the Denti stuff on the audio desk as well. So,
but let's quickly talk about what he's trying to do. His business use case is he wants to get audio out from Wirecast into a feed into something externally. And you might be producing and doing all sorts of stuff. You might have some audio locally within Wirecast. How's that actually going to happen? So the Wirecast output, you go into Wirecast, you go into preferences, you're going to set that up to Dante via stereo microphone, which you can then get that out into Skype. So that works. But, and this is a big but, what if you're also using routing on the input? I haven't played with this, so I'm curious to know your answer. What if you're also using Dante Via for routing on the input side? Is it smart enough to be able to handle both input and output routing at the same time?
Yes, it does.
Okay, that's really good to know.
Yeah.
So I use Dante Via to capture audio on the input side. So I capture it from VLC, comes into Wirecast, and that works quite well.
Yeah, as I said, I'm very happy with VIA as well. It supports only stereo, so keep that in mind. If you have multi-channel audio interfaces using ACO or whatever, you always get the on Windows at least the stereo pairs that's available. So VIA is stereo only. Keep that in mind. That's maybe one limitation. But if you want to have multi-channel audio, you can use the virtual sound card from Audinate. They provide Windows drivers as well, or ASIO. So at the end, it depends. And you can, in the controller, you can route whatever Dante signal to whatever device. So you can be a little bit creative there if you have more than one device.
Yeah. Okay, so moving on from that, I'm just looking here. Some more discussion about NDI delay analysis. So I just wanted to share, I did some testing with Matthew, and we're going to bring him in a little bit just to talk about what we did and what we found. But let me come back to that. Next one, we've got a post about a newbie using a Canon M50 with a connected microphone. What did he have? What was his original?
Was it the shotgun microphone?
Shotgun mic, yeah.
Yeah. I read that. Yeah, I mean, you can all laugh. What happened to me once is that I plugged in the TSR cable into this in the wrong outlet. So I switched between or did wrong. I put it into the speaker one and not into the microphone one. And I was wondering, yes, I know that I was laughing. And then I was wondering, hey, the mic is not working, and what's going on? And yeah, sometimes it even happens to me. But I assume it's everything connected in its correct way. And then you should check on the camera. Mine has I use a GH5 as a DSLR style camera. There you have audio meters on the display. So that gives you a checkpoint, audio's coming in, and then you have to check on the HDMI if you receive audio.
I'm just going to pause on one little comment here that was put in by Matthew, and he's saying that these devices are a bit finicky for input, needing to be at 1080i only. I just want to comment on that very, very briefly. I've got a similar issue with, I'm using a Blackmagic intensity shuttle, not on the camera that you see me on today. I've got a separate camera for my normal show, for when I normally produce it. And unfortunately, I can't get 1080p into the intensity shuttle, even with a Thunderbolt connection into my Mac. So that's a limitation of that hardware. Very annoying, but I just thought I'd share that experience as well.
Yeah, that's common with Blackmagic. I think you can get 1080i, but not 1080p. So be very, if you intend to buy a capture card, be very specific and check the documentation, what input formats the card supports, especially in the case of Blackmagic. If you run Makewell or whatever capture card, my experience is I have a Makewell card. It just takes everything. I haven't found a cam that was not accepted so far. So that you don't have to worry. You don't have to update drivers all the time. So just plug it in, install the drivers, and off you go, and you have a fun time.
Speaking of capturing, I want to share something. The other day, I was doing some testing of some performance out of Title Live, and I wanted to have HDMI out of my other laptop, which I can connect to a monitor, and it works perfectly. I then connected that to the Blackmagic shuttle, and I was going to record it into my other workstation. And I thought this will be fine. It's not going to have any copy protection in it. It should work just perfectly. I set it up to the right frame rate. I set it up to the appropriate resolution, matching what my intensity shuttle was expecting to see. But I got bubkus. It was just black. There was nothing there. It wasn't able to receive it. So that's something. How would you do that if you want? By the way, before I continue, the reason I wanted to do it over HDMI instead of using a local screen capture program, I wanted to isolate the capturing process so that it wasn't interfering with the testing that I was doing. So that was the reason. But have you done this? Have you done this successfully, and how did it go for you?
Yeah, I do it regularly. I use a Epiphan AVIO. That one is specifically designed to capture computer sources. Let me say it this way. You can adapt to HDMI, so it has a DVI input, and they provide adapters for HDMI. And this is, I found that's another very working horse in my setup. You can push every resolution to it, it just picks it up. It's another fantastic capture card if you looking for one. It's not the cheapest one. It's around $400, something like this. But it does really does it to 1080 p60, which is very good. And they have a 4K version as well, and that's obviously a little bit more expensive. But that is what I use regularly, capturing computer screens or GPU outputs from other machines. That's one setup.
But what's the reason? What's the reason why that wouldn't work using the shuttle? I don't get why it didn't work.
I just on Monday, was it Monday? It was Monday. I had a Mac Mini and connected to a Bird Dog, and the Bird Dog is able to capture 1080 p60 as well. But I needed to set the screen resolution or the frequency to 25 hertz, and then it started to work. So I don't know. Sometimes that's a strange thing with computers. Maybe their signals are not that broadcast conform than you would like to have, and the cards just don't pick it up or whatever. So on the Mac, it's easily to set the frequency to different values. Same on Windows.
I could only set it to 50 or 60. It wouldn't let me go down to 25. So.
Yeah, okay, then the choices are limited. But I set it to 60, and I set it to 5997. I set it to 30. Nothing worked. So the 25 was the setting that the 1080 started to work on the Bird Dog device, ingesting HDMI. I don't know. The Bird Dog picks up my SDI camera perfectly, so I don't know. Sometimes strange things happen,
Yeah.
Um,
Anyway, look, it's good that you've mentioned some alternate hardware. I'll definitely have a little peek at that. But let's move on to something else. This one is a post about YouTube error requesting events from server. I've seen this message a number of times myself, and I've got a really big tip for you. Turn on allow embedding inside the YouTube panel for your event. That's one thing that I found was a problem. Telestream have said that they have fixed that. However, I can't verify it because once you turn that on in your community preferences, you can't turn it back off again. So I can't go back and testing. But there's one other suggestion beyond that as well. Oh, by the way, here we go. Is this Craig talking about that exact thing? Live streaming enable. Embed live streams. That is the one. You need to turn on this embed live streams. If that is turned off, you will have this problem. That is a known bug. And Telestream, it looks like hasn't fixed it. And that was the guy was running Wirecast 10. So that definitely would be a challenge. One other thing, if people are ever debugging issues talking to the YouTube API, there's a piece of software that I use on a regular basis. It's called Charles Proxy. Charles is a piece of software that is a transparent proxy. It sits in between your application on your computer and whatever it is that you've got remote. So it's going to go and intercept every message between you and YouTube. And I've used that a number of times to demonstrate problems and prove to Wirecast, hey, here's the problem with your software, you need to go fix it. So really good, useful piece of software.
Yeah, you can use Charles, you can use Fiddler, you can use Wireshark, all these capture software that sits in between your NIC and the remote end.
You wouldn't be able to use Wirecast because very often they're HTTPS encrypted. The good thing about Charles, and I believe Fiddler as well, is that they'll do SSL proxy interception as well. Yeah, but not with Wirecast, with Wireshark.
Wireshark, yeah. Yeah, it depends. You have at least you have different tools for debugging different kind of problems.
Yeah. Okay, it's 7:24. I'm going to go for one or two more quick issues that we can look at. Wirecast 12 and Livestream Producer. Let's throw that on the screen. Wirecast Virtual Camera into Livestream Producer for switching, etc., etc. Make sure it's installed properly. Problem after upgrading. Roll back to previous version. Running Mojave.
Yeah, it goes into the same topic a little bit that we have talked before with the virtual camera in general. So what I would try is using the new tech workaround. At least try it, going NDI out from Wirecast and then using the new tech software and ingest into the live stream producer. That should be possible.
By the way, I haven't tested this before, but does NDI out, is our NDI output sending audio with that feed as well?
Yes, if
it does?
A full, yeah.
Okay.
The master audio.
Okay. So that's really helpful. That's a very, very good workaround, but you would need to have the professional version to do NDI out.
Yes, that's right. That's right.
Okay, look, we've had a look at a bunch of issues, but the elephant in the room, I think, was the NDI challenges with the most recent version. Now, what I'd like to do is a little bit of an experiment. Now, I've got my Title Alive computer over here to my left, and I'm going to send a title. Let's turn that shot on that's got that title. There he is. Now this title, I want you to have a look. There's a little flare object that moves around this when this happens. So, and see that big rectangle thing there as well.
Yep.
Right? That never used to be there. Now, here's the interesting point. That behavior, that whatever you want to call it, is something that only started happening when Wirecast 12 was introduced into the mix. And I thought to myself, well, is it Wirecast 12 or is it a problem because I had just upgraded Title Alive at the same time? So I said, okay, let's test that theory out. And in fact, I'm going to do that test right now. I'm going to go and open NDI monitor from Sienna. I'm not opening the new tech one. And the reason why I'm not using the new tech one is the Sienna one has an alpha channel layer kind of thing. So let's go and get that screen capture. There's my Sienna monitor, and if I go and fire that title again, I get exactly the same thing. Now, even with that information at hand, I continued to talk to the people at New Blue FX, but they said even though it happens in Sienna as well, it's not a Title Alive problem, it's Wirecast, and they've acknowledged and admitted the bug. Tell me what your thinking is.
How could Wirecast change the output of Titler? Totally independent software? Hard to explain, or hard. I couldn't even imagine.
Yeah. I mean, if it was only Wirecast that had this problem, I'd say, yes, it's a Wirecast problem. But let's go and take that and unwrap that to the next level. Is it possible that both Wirecast and Sienna are both using the same SDK version and that the new tech monitor hasn't yet upgraded? That's a possibility. But I still don't understand how the image would look like that.
I would assume the new tech software being on the latest SDK version. If you download 3.8, the new tech monitor should be 3.8 as well. I don't think they step back a version or whatever, or leave one out.
Possibly, but I haven't physically upgraded on my machine the new tech one. But the challenge is I can't test the new tech monitor because it shows a black background. So there's no checkerboard to help you work out what it looks like in terms of the raw signal. So that's why I like the Sienna one. Anyway, now, Mr. Potter, I still had the overlay in Wirecast and we didn't see the Sienna. My bad. Let me go and do that again. Let me go and do that. So I'll fire that one more time. I've got to reopen the Sienna. I'll just hide this window and drag that one over there. And we'll fire that title. Just wait for it to get the little connected icon. Oh, come on, be nice to me. That's one of the annoying things about the Sienna app that I've found. It is slow to connect to an NDI feed, but once it's up, it's rock solid. Give it a few. Ah, that's the chat one. No wonder it wasn't working. the title one. There we go. So you can see that same kind of blocky thing there. It feels like that it's trying to render the transparency layer and the flare layer back to front somehow. They're swapping the colors. That's what it feels like, but anyway. And it looks, oh, Jen, you looked like you'd frozen up for a second there. It's all good.
No, I watched down on the output because the return feed is not that good quality. So I watched on the YouTube player. So that's why.
Okay. Speaking of which, you're looking very pixelated today. I just want to go to a different shot of you. So we were playing with our chroma key earlier, and it was looking bad earlier. I just want to see if I can play with that and make you look a little bit better. Let's try that. No, it's still very pixely. Wasn't doing this before, but anyway, it is what it is.
Yeah, I think we have to change to transmit NDI signal to get a better chroma key, because I do chroma key at my end, replace the background with a green, send over to you.
And I pull out that green.
Yeah, so it's twice keyed, and this does not make it better, to be honest.
Let's go and try that theory, because we've got Matthew Potter in the background at the moment, and I'm gonna bring Matthew in as well, because he and I did some testing on NDI in the last 24 hours, so it'd be good to bring him in for our NDI chat. Hello, Chris Zwolinski from Michigan. Hello and welcome. Ooh, breaking news. I just got a message on my laptop to my left. Facebook has been charged.
For what?
Ad discrimination. Someone's charged them. Filed charges against Facebook for ad targeting tools that allegedly break the Fair Housing Act regulations. Just happened to see that on the side, and I thought that was interesting, but it's not. Okay, so Matthew, come into the rendezvous. I sent you a link before. And I tell you why this is going to be interesting, because he's doing exactly the same thing you're doing, Jens. It'll be interesting to see if his image versus yours looks the same or different, or see what we get. So whenever you're ready, Matthew, can you tap dance while we're waiting?
Wrong shoes to do a tap dance. Sorry.
Yeah.
Matthew, I actually have Blunnies.
The same rendezvous link that I sent before, Matthew, just in case you're wondering.
Yeah, I think that the Blunny 500 is not the right shoe to tap dance.
Blundstone?
Yes, I wear Blundstones.
Okay, well, it's good to hear that you've got a little piece of Australia with you.
Yes, every day.
Because the Blundstones, I think, came out of Tasmania originally, I think.
I don't know, honestly. It's a Tassie style. I don't know. I just recently ordered some new Blunnies, so waiting for them to arrive.
Yeah. So Matthew is informing me that it says waiting to connect. I just resent the rendezvous link. So, and he's getting the spinning thing. So here's
I received before, just as a quick advice, maybe close your browser and start with a fresh browser.
No. I'll tell you what it's going to be, and you're not going to like it. I've seen this before. Right now, if I click disconnect and reconnect of the entire rendezvous session that will start working for him. But I tell you what, we're going to do a live experiment if you're happy to be patient and wait for a little while. I'm going to log on to my router.
No worries.
And we're going to see what firewall rules or what dynamic ports are open. And then I'm going to restart the session and see if it opens a different set of ports, just to find out if something has timed out. I think this is my gut feeling that there's a dynamic port that is opened and it's closed again. So,
but as WebRTC is designed and Greg acknowledged, they're using the turn server setup, and usually once you can connect to the turn server, you should be able to multiply the output to whoever joins on a later stage.
I agree. So maybe it's the turn server that's not talking anymore. I don't know. But I'm just going to go and all I want to do is get a copy of my IP tables rules at the time before I reset the rendezvous dashboard, and then I'll do it again after. That's all I'm going to do, and have a look for any differences. So Matthew says, let's do this. I'm up for an experiment. And for the record, I can see my camera in the preview field, but I'm not seeing him coming in here at all. And we've got IP tables list MV, and I'll go and save that somewhere. And when I go and reset this in a couple of moments, we're going to kill you. You'll need to come back as well.
Yeah, no worries.
So I'm just going to put that into a text file somewhere. Text compare. There we go. Back to Wirecast. We're going to disconnect you and reconnect. So here we go. And as expected, it came back, and all of a sudden Matthew Potter is there and Jens has come back. So the question is, why is it that I have to disconnect and reconnect in Rendezvous to get a guest into Rendezvous? So I'm going to go and get my firewall rules. By the way, Matthew, we can't hear you at the moment. You're not yet into a shot, just letting you know. So let me just quickly do this IP tables capture before we get you to say hello. And Jens can hear you, but I can't. Oh, and by the way, we can't hear Jens.
So now
because,
we steal his webcast. So
so we can only hear Jens.
I don't know.
Matthew is hiding in the background. He's
I can. I'm fine.
You two are having a nice chat there in the background. Okay, let's put Matthew in now. Before...
Yes, yeah. I think we met in the forum.
Hang on. Jens,
knowledge there, but in person, long time ago. I think it was the Insider program where we did some tests.
Jens, can you hear me? No, he can't. Let me get Matthew up.
I don't hear him. That's a problem.
There we go. Let's do this. Change source. Matthew, can you talk?
Yes, I can. Hi, guys. How's it going?
I can hear you.
I can hear you clearly, and I was hearing Jens and you earlier when you couldn't hear him.
I can hear Jens now. And can you talk, Jens? Can you hear me? He can't hear me.
Can you hear him at all, Jens? Can you say anything?
I hear you, Matthew, but I don't hear Greg.
Interesting.
Yes.
So if you can't hear, if the stream isn't hearing, Jens can hear me, but he can't hear you. I can hear both of you nice, clean, clear.
Okay. So, Matthew, can you tell Jens to disconnect and reconnect and then see if he can hear me?
Absolutely. Jens, would you be so kind as to disconnect and reconnect?
Yes, I will. 1 sec.
As he walks out of frame. That was perfect.
So what I'll do in the meantime...
And this is what I'm talking about. Why would Wirecast ever put a question mark in the feed? And I'm seeing a question mark as incoming from you.
Yeah. Okay, so there is a bug request. Can you hear me,
Seems
Jens?
I have both audio. Yes,
Okay.
I can hear you again.
Hey, I can hear both of you.
Okay,
Yeah.
so let me
so
go
do
and
I.
put Matthew
Screw it,
into
let's do
the
it live.
frame. And I've just got to key him, so we'll have the three of us.
So I'm giving you a perfect, should be a perfect 255 green from me. I put my arms out like this.
I should put you in the back layer, and then you can give us a big hug. Hang on, let's do that. There we go. So here's the first interesting observation. You can see Matthew's camera feed, or maybe you can't see because Rendezvous pixelates a little bit, etc.
I can.
His video is smooth as, and he is doing exactly the same thing in terms of the chroma keying. I think, this is my gut feeling, we had a chat before, I think it may be the lighting and or the way you were keying. You remember at the beginning we were talking about your shirt looking a bit funny?
Up. Rendezvous.
I have scaled him up, absolutely. But
and that's the issue.
If I put him down to a single shot, we still have, yeah.
Well, sorry, that's just the Rendezvous coming in. I'm waiting for the live feed on the other monitor.
Yeah. Anyway, let me put that back and we'll add the fish tank just for a little bit of amusement. So, I'm drowning.
Sorry. Last time I saw the video, I had to. I got it into my system. We're good.
Okay, let's talk about a couple of things. The first one I want to talk about is my system performance right now. My CPU load just got up to 70 or 80%. Now, I'm using hardware accelerators and all of that kind of stuff, so it shouldn't be doing that. But what I'm about to do is close the Rendezvous dashboard. Now, all of a sudden, it's gone down to 48% from 80%.
Yeah.
Conclusion, the Rendezvous dashboard is not using the GPU, it's using CPU to go and display and render its screen and do its stuff.
That depends on how the web side of things are going on. If it's viewing that stuff not on a GPU, like if it's rendering that video content from everybody not on a GPU level, then yeah, it would be to the CPU level. Absolutely.
Yeah, you can get, but can you switch on the hardware acceleration somewhere?
No.
I mean, and you can do in Chrome, whatever, but
yeah. Anyway, so this is one of the bugs that I had previously reported. But I'll tell you what we're going to do right now. Since we did talk about it before, I'm just doing a firewall compare to see if there are any differences in rules that are available before and after restarting that session, and there are no differences. So it's nothing to do with the router and the network side. It is simply Wirecast not answering, not listening, not doing something on that particular port at the time. If I could turn back time before we started this stream today, there is a Rendezvous debugging setting that I could have turned on to go and get some Rendezvous logs, but I haven't done that. So next week, maybe we can do that and see if we can identify that. Anyway, NDI, Matthew, your favorite topic.
Yep. It's definitely been a fun time. I tested it out, first of all, ages ago when it first was implemented, and I just never had a good time with it. And only over the last 6 months have I been enjoying it. But as obviously you've seen in the forums there, it's definitely been something of a pain point. Yeah. And then the testing we did last night,
Yeah.
it was fine. It was perfect. It was if it was like that the whole time, I would have implemented this ages ago.
So just to explain to everyone what we did.
Yeah.
Matthew
Do you want to
and
pull up the
I.
forum post?
No, well, let's talk and explain, right?
Sure.
Matthew was explaining some problems and some challenges in the forum. I was having the NDI problem that I showed on the screen a moment ago from Titler Live. And just to be clear, New Blue FX Titler Live said conclusively that they spoke to Telestream, they spoke to Wirecast, and that Telestream acknowledged that it was a problem on their end. Even though it also happens in Siena, even though we can see it elsewhere, Wirecast acknowledged it was their problem. So to me, in my mind, that tells me that it's something to do with that SDK, but I still think there's something to do with how the data is being sent from Titler Live that's at fault as well. You can't have it just make up this stuff and have these grey boxes. That just doesn't make sense to me.
So the gray boxes side that you're seeing, I think, isn't a part of NDI. I think that's actually Titler Live rendering. That has
Correct.
nothing to do. That has everything to do with a full 100% transparency is not coming in as transparent because there's no flattening process for transparency.
I agree.
Is it only this video that you're getting this, or only this template that you're using that is having this problem?
I haven't tested every template. I haven't tested everything, but it is only that one particular template that I'm aware of that I can replicate it on.
Which might be something wrong with a template, admittedly.
Well,
and
I
that
went
has
and
nothing to do with
repulled
NDI.
it. I went and repulled it from the library.
Yeah.
So it's
But again,
from
it might be an old template that's been brought up through the years, right?
Possibly.
And it might be something in that. There's a bunch that are there that contain drop shadows, not only lens flares, but drop shadows in there. And I'd be curious to know how those appear, or even creating a brand new Titler Live template from scratch and adding one of these lens flares in there and trying to replicate this with a brand new one with maybe not as many things.
Yeah. So maybe outside of today, we don't want to keep people waiting too long.
Yeah.
We can play with that. But let's get back to the NDI problem we were trying to replicate. There were multiple people in the forum all complaining about lag to do with NDI. And I saw one particular post from you, Matthew, where you were waving your hand in front of the camera and waving it back and waving it and waving it back. And, you know, there was definitely a visible, noticeable lag. Explain your setup that you had for that.
Sure. So that setup was, I believe, a hard line.
I did mute to everyone else. It was only the local web. It's only the local people on Rendezvous where the ability to send a live output audio feed to you guys is broken, even though that was the new feature that was going to be in version 12. It doesn't work. Sorry.
It's all good. I tried to ignore it, but it was just like, yeah. So the way I had it set up was a laptop here beside me that was hardlined, good GPU in it, powered on, using the proper graphics card, local network with a gigabit switch, and I was using a webcam on a powerful gaming rig that was basically just using the webcam as a virtual output, as actually not a virtual output, as a scan converter input on NDI tools. This scan converter NDI tools was then being broadcast to the laptop, and I was pulled up in Wirecast, and then it was also pulled up in a monitor. So I was able to do basically seeing the webcam on the secondary device. And as I was moving my hand, it was not showing the right output. Now, I've also since done other tests where on the same computer, I have Skype running because I use Skype for some of the things I do, just because I can get multiple feeds of NDI out rather than using Rendezvous and having somebody who is using 720p or whatnot use that. So anyway, I was using Skype, and Skype allows a local and a remote, whoever is in there for remote, as outputs. So I was pulling the local NDI stream out of Skype, which was coming in at 1080p, and I was pulling that into the local Wirecast. And even that was delayed. When I would wave my hand across, the NDI monitor was matching what Wirecast was getting, which was interesting. But OBS was getting a much more real time, if maybe a frame or frame off, basically, of what the real time video was out of Skype. So clearly there was something in the latest version of NDI that has been implemented that is causing a buffer. And it normally wouldn't be an issue if it wasn't for the fact that I don't use audio through the NDI feed. I use audio through an external mixer into an audio interface, right? So it's pairing that up. I'm sure right now there's probably a little bit of a delay based upon my mouth movements and my audio input. If I do this, right, there's probably a slight delay in that. But that's the way I'm able to get this chroma key into Rendezvous, because my input right now is actually coming through an actual camera, which is 1080p only. So I'm having to actually piggyback this. This is actually coming through an NDI virtual input in order to send to you.
So let's just pause for a minute and then talk about, so that you were using some camera input sources, clicking your fingers, waving your hands, and then I said, let's do something a little bit more scientific, and we got a video file.
Yes.
And we used one computer to send that video file, and we used Wirecast to receive the video file. And at the same time that Wirecast was receiving that, simultaneously we were also looking at that on, in my case, Sienna NDI monitor, and I also tested with the NewTek NDI monitor. And the final piece of the jigsaw, we video captured that. On my machine, I was video capturing with Camtasia, and you did a similar test on your machine. End of the day, the result that I saw on my end was between 5 to 8 milliseconds delay max between NDI monitor and Wirecast. And your results similar?
My results on last night's testing was almost exactly what you were getting, except possibly even sooner. So I had done the same thing. I had actually done both a screen capture of everything at the same time, and I also replicated it by taking the webcam, turning it around, and pointing it at this same video. And we did a test between OBS, the NDI monitor through NewTek, and with Wirecast, and all three were hovering around the same. And in, I think, one case, we saw a couple of times where Wirecast was actually a frame ahead of OBS, but all of them were within a 3 to 8 millisecond turnaround time, which is more than reasonable. That's fine.
So there's two questions. There's two questions in my mind. First question is, what's different between that and what you did before? And we'll come to that in a second. But the second question is, it's interesting to note the variability.
Yeah.
I saw at some points during this testing process where the NDI monitor and Wirecast were 100% frame for frame aligned in terms of displaying this clock. But then at other points, it was 5 to 8 milliseconds, and it got as high as 11 to 15 milliseconds out. That's the worst that I saw. I don't understand why. And, there's nothing we can do about that. Just an observation.
I find it very interesting that it would connect 3 times, or there'd be 3 separate connections instead of it being like, if it was me building this, and it's not, and I'm not a video engineer by any stretch, but I would have it where if the system itself has an NDI tools situation or an NDI tools installed, that camera input or that input should be on connection. Great, you've made a connection. Any video coming in on that channel always passes through that connection, whether it be OBS, a monitor, Wirecast, or other methods of getting that in. And this way you're not taking up more bandwidth across your network.
pause and talk about that for 1 second. What you just said, and we can have a look at this in Wireshark and actually the video feed. The question is each individual application creating its own listener and then subscribing and having its own copy of the data going into it? Or is there some middleware library or other NDI to get all of this stuff in? So
NDI is point-to-point. And if you have three where you can set it to unicast or multicast, I haven't found it on BirdDocs or any software outputs, so Skype or Wirecast or any OBS stuff. It's unicast by definition, by default, I think. You need to manipulate in the access manager if you want to have a multicast output.
But by default, it's multicast, no?
By default, it's unicast.
Really?
That's my understanding.
Okay.
Yes.
There you go. Something for us to go and dig into and run our Wiresharks on later.
Yeah.
That could, if they switched over to like using a centralized hub per device, that could save a lot of bandwidth.
Yeah, but most people are not going to be receiving on the same device twice. What we were doing in terms of our method of testing was unusual by itself. A little.
No, but that could be really beneficial for broadcasters. If you have like per floor a receiver that would redistribute it to all the different outputs or all the different sources.
Well, you don't even need that. If you're using multicast, it's going to have the network switching going and doing that. But anyway.
But
just
please
so you know, Jens,
remember
just so you know,
to
Jens, just so you know, I thought the interface was, hello, advertise, I have an NDI feed available. Then the other systems go and send back and get the information of the multicast address and then subscribe to that multicast address. That was my understanding. But anyway, we can have a look at this. We can be geeks later.
Yeah. I'm sending.
Come up now on this stream. Let's just quickly cut to the chase. With regard to NDI, the delay thing is not predictable and it is not necessarily repeatable in all circumstances. We don't know what the single root cause is for the problem that we're talking about. More research, more troubleshooting to go and find out what's going on there. But I think my conclusion is what we have in the release software for Wirecast version 12 is different, significantly different. And there was no mention in the release notes. I've been very, very vocal that there needed to be a set of release notes published that explain, hey, NDI has been overhauled. We've got something new and different, and you need to look into that as part of your commissioning of this version of the product.
So I was looking today, and either they've updated it or it's something I didn't see the first time. There is a mention in how they did upgrade the SDK to version 3.8. So Wirecast is moving to NDI SDK version 3.8. That was mentioned in there.
Okay.
But that's all that was said about it.
My understanding is it was a little bit more than that.
From what we're seeing clearly, because going back to version 11.2 is it significantly improves this. It improves the input coming in, at least from my testing, aside from last night. But something has changed. The
other thing that I see as an end user is that in running Wirecast 11. Whatever, the NDI signal terminates directly in Wirecast. Now, if we have a look at the processes running in version 12, there's a separate Wirecast D process, a daemon, that's running, and the NDI connections terminate on that, and there is a separate interface from that back into Wirecast. So that can be potentially introducing some delay. We don't know.
Which could be Wirecast doing what we've just said NDI protocol should be doing. That could be Wirecast saying, hey, I'm going to make a connection to this NDI input or output. Therefore, any new request to get that NDI source is only going to this daemon. That could be them doing that.
It could very well be. We don't know. We don't have the source code.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm going to quickly go to one last topic because it's a really relevant topic. Today, on this feed, I am currently seeing 1.3 approximate megabits per second output from Wirecast. Yet it's been buffering from time to time, and it's frustrating as all to me. I'll upload a copy I've recorded today's broadcast. But even right now, I'm watching the statistics. Let's see if I can put that over here. Where's my mouse? In fact, I've still got Sienna and
changed in the rendezvous for me as well.
Sorry, what?
The quality, the return picture is very fluctuating. Sometimes it's sharp, sometimes it's very pixelated.
So that's now. And as you can see, the RTMP queue size went up significantly. Ultimate root cause of that would be TCP retransmissions. But my question is, why would I have TCP retransmissions on a 5 megabit circuit running one single 1.25 megabit stream with a couple of rendezvous sessions? It's frustrating to me, but my carrier has said the network is absolutely crystal clear clean now, but experience tells me otherwise. And my frustration is
try the bonding setup at your end, so you can bond
keep telling me that, yeah.
WAN connections.
Yeah, you keep telling me that. I guess I need to. I've got a 3G router that's got an Ethernet connection at the back end of it, and that device is currently available as a backup service only. And if I were to try and use that one and the I'll up recorded.
Currently buffering.
I'm just looking at my buffering like crazy.
Remove me from the stream. The red question mark.
And thank you, Matthew. We're going to come back next week. We're going to do it all again. We're just going to pull up stuff on the forum, talk about it, explore it, try and hopefully add some insights and wisdom into why things do what they do, and explore and experiment ourselves, and hopefully it'll be better one sooner or later for everyone. So that's all for now. I'll see you next time. Bye, guys.
Thank you. Bye-bye.